Everyone's probably telling you to do over 100 mixed timed UWorld questions a day. After all, studies show that the highest scoring students do many more questions on average. But if it were really that simple, wouldn't everyone just do 100 questions a day and automatically score 260s? Let me show you the exact UWorld settings, realistic expectations, and milestones you need to make scoring in the 250s, 260s, or even 270s virtually inevitable, even if your score is below passing to start. What I'm going to show you next is exactly where to start at every level, from the very basics to the advanced studiers. We'll break down how to use UWorld effectively no matter where you're starting from, and how to progress through each stage of mastery. So for phase 1, we're just going to keep it simple. Start with 5 question blocks. I know this doesn't seem like a lot. I'll explain more why that makes sense in a bit. You want to focus on just one topic. For example, we tend to start with coronary artery disease. So here's an example of what this might look like. Personally, I like to start with tutor mode in the beginning. This is for step 2, but it would look the same thing for step 1 in terms of choosing what subjects. So you would choose all subjects. And then when you go to systems, you are going to hit this plus sign right here. And so you might start with something like coronary heart disease, or like one of the sections that has more questions in it. Initially, I recommend keeping this untimed because again, you're learning the process of how to read questions. You're gonna have to learn the process of how to learn things in the USMLE relevant way. Your target should be about 20 to 30 questions per day. You should be aiming to get 80% in your chosen topic. The reason why starting with large mixed time blocks don't work for a lot of people, especially in the beginning, is that it'll take you months to see if your studying is actually working, right? It's sort of like if you hit a tennis ball and then you had to wait months to see where it landed, you wouldn't have the kind of feedback necessary to know how to adjust your studying to see what you could make better. If you start with a relatively simple subtopic like say coronary artery disease, then you can learn that topic relatively quickly. Even after learning a topic, you'll still get a lot of questions wrong, often because you'll have a hard time with interpreting questions, right? You're gonna have to solve problems of how are you reading questions, and do you understand what the question is really asking you, and can you put all of the information together in the vignette? Knowing the knowledge is a necessary but not sufficient step for getting a lot of questions correct on your exam. By limiting yourself to a smaller topic, it'll make it much more obvious to you what sorts of gaps you still have. Usually what we recommend is to get 80% on 10 consecutive unused questions. A big enough sample to know that you know the topic well enough, right? Not perfectly, but well enough that you can move on. Personally, I like 80% as a target for step 1 or for step 2. For step 1, obviously the goal is to pass. If you want to score like 60% and you start at 50%, you don't have to study every single topic and get it to 80% in order to get your overall score to 65%. Let's say that you wanted to get your score to 60% for step 1 before you wanted to take your test. If you started at 40% and you only got 50% of the material to 80%, your average score would be 60%. If you target an 80% on everything that you know, as we'll talk about later, your success will be virtually inevitable because in order to score really high, all you have to do is just keep learning more things. As you probably realized, the critical thing is to make sure that you can get it to 80% in the first place. This is where most people fall off, is that they tend to rush through this and they worry that they're moving too slowly and that they're not covering enough material quickly. What they have yet to realize is that by covering material quickly and just having a superficial understanding of it, it will mean that they're most likely going to have to go back and relearn the material later, which is actually the biggest time killer. Once you've gotten 80% on untimed blocks of 10 consecutive unused questions, the next step is to add the element of time. At this stage, I still recommend that you do 5 question blocks. The reason being that if you do a 10 question block, you're gonna blow through the questions much faster. All you're trying to do really in the beginning is to identify things that you don't know, and then use something like first aid as a target for how to master that thing more in depth. Be sure to check out our other videos on how to use first aid more effectively to master topics as opposed to just memorize them. But for phase 2, you're gonna still do 5 question blocks, but you're gonna change 2 things. 1, you're gonna add time. 2, you wanna increase the number of questions that you're doing per day. The ultimate goal is still that we wanna get 80% on 40 question mixed timed blocks, but we're doing this in a graded way. If you want advice on how to read questions more efficiently, be sure to let us know in the comments, and like and subscribe to this video so that you can be notified when we come out with more content. If you're a medical student or a doctor preparing for either the USMLEs or COMLEX or one of your medical board exams, then be sure to sign up for our free 14-step program where we'll walk you through the most efficient ways for you to improve your score in a short period of time. And if you're interested in getting there faster, be sure to book a free call with our team where we'll break down what it is that's holding you back, and if it makes sense, explain how it is that we can help you to get there more efficiently.